Wet in the east, further west, some clear, bright spells first thing, but also a scattering of showers. Across much of Northern Ireland, we're starting the day generally fine, but across England, yes, there will be some brighter spells, perhaps over the North Midlands and the north of England, but on the whole, it's going to be relatively cloudy and there will be a fair bit of rain around. The most persistent rain will be across parts of Wales and southwest England, and as that system that I mentioned earlier pushes its way through as we go into the afternoon, I'm expecting this rain to become a bit more intense, and so we could see 50 to 75 millimetres in some places as we go into Wednesday. Could cause some localised issues. Otherwise, and away from the rain, it's not feeling too bad. Some decent sunshine, warm enough with highs in the mid to high teens, but under the cloud and rain it is going to feel, well, relatively chilly, especially when we compare it to the warm sunny weather that we had last week. There is more changeable weather to come as we go through towards the end of the week, particularly in the north on Wednesday, drier further south, and notice temperatures only around average for the time of year.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems on the M6 heading north near the Cheshire-Merseyside border. Now, the two left lanes on that four-lane stretch are closed towards junction 23. The Haydock turn-off, they're recovering a lorry that caught fire. In Northamptonshire on the M1, two lanes are closed southbound from junction 16 to 15A towards Northampton for emergency repairs. And there are delays of an hour on West Coast mainline trains between Carlisle and Glasgow Central and Edinburgh Waverley after a train broke down north of Lockerbie earlier on. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps four, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, happy Monday to you. It's 6 o'clock, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Now. Prime Minister Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs. Yes, that sounds good, and he is certainly smashing something. Records. 46% more people have crossed the Channel this year than this time last year. Ladies and gents, we are currently at over 8,000 people. What on earth do we even say to this? And our government effectively controls British Steel. A simple question for you. What do you think think then should happen next? And a report out today concludes that there was no evidence of two-tier policing when it came to the Southport riots. Do you agree with that conclusion? And get this, ladies and gents, a jailed terrorist has managed to attack multiple prison officers using oil and a makeshift knife after he was allowed to work in the prison kitchens. Some things, they just beggar belief. We've got all of that and lots more. Look, my panel tonight, Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK, and Barry Gardiner, the Labour MP for Brent West. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. Birmingham's long-suffering residents are in for even more misery after refuse workers rejected a deal aimed at ending the city's bin strike. The Unite union said its members voted overwhelmingly against what it described as totally inadequate offer that still included pay cuts. Hundreds of workers have been on all-out strike for a month, leading to rubbish piling up on the streets. A small military logistics team has been drafted in to help coordinate the clean-up. The soldiers won't collect rubbish, but are helping plan the response as public health concerns grow. Well, some breaking news now, and the Newcastle head coach Eddie Howe is recovering in hospital after being diagnosed with pneumonia. The club said he'll miss the next 2 matches after being taken to hospital at the weekend. We'll have more on this story later. Downing Street says it's confident that vital raw materials will reach the Scunthorpe Steelworks in time to keep the blast furnaces running. A shipment is already on the way, and British Steel's operational teams are now assessing the furnaces. It's part of efforts to stabilise operations after emergency legislation handed the government power to take control of the steelworks. Volodymyr Zelensky has invited Donald Trump to Ukraine to witness the horrific impact of the war before striking any deal with Russia. He told the broadcaster CBS that Donald Trump should come see the people, the hospitals and the children destroyed or dead. His comments came before Sunday's missile strike on Sumy, now Ukraine's deadliest civilian attack this year, killing 34 people, including 2 children. MPs have found police were dangerously unprepared for the scale of violence that erupted after the murder of 3 children in Southport last summer. The Home Affairs Committee said the response from officers during the nationwide riots was brave and professional, but forces had failed to anticipate the level of unrest, leaving some officers exposed to significant risk. More than 1,800 arrests were made in the aftermath of the attack in 2024. But the report found no evidence of two-tier policing and praised officers who faced unprecedented disorder. And finally, Katy Perry says she plans to write a song about her historic suborbital space flight today. The pop star's Blue Origin mission blasted off from West Texas a little earlier on its first ever all-female space mission. The pop star joined 5 other women, including a former NASA rocket scientist and civilian rights activist, for the 11-minute suborbital flight. Well, after that short but no doubt spectacular flight, the capsule touched back down in a parachute landing in the Texas desert. Apparently, Katy Perry could be heard shouting, oh my God," as she blasted off. Yes, that's exactly what I'd be screaming at that point. Now it's over to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there. Thank you very much for that, Mark. I loved that last story there. You can tell Katy Kerry is not from Hull, because I can assure you, ladies and gents, if you stuck me in a penis-shaped rocket, zipped me off at goodness knows how many miles an hour, there would be much stronger words than, oh my God, coming out of my mouth. I can tell you that for free. But anyway, look, I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Thank you for your company. This evening, we've got a lot to discuss. Sia Yousaf, the chairman of Reform UK, alongside me, as is Barry Gardner, Labour MP for Brent West. Good evening, gents, to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you at home. What's on your mind tonight? What's got you talking? Did you see in the news bulletins as well that story about Birmingham? We discussed that last week, didn't we? And I was asking you, do you think whether or not the army should get involved? Overwhelmingly, you lot said no, you didn't. You wanted to see people with community orders, etc. People that had been punished for crimes, you wanted them put to work in Birmingham. Obviously, whoever's in charge is not watching Dewbs & Co. They should be doing. They might cotton on to some of our good ideas, but for now, we can hope and pray that common sense does indeed at some point prevail. But it won't be prevailing anytime soon, because we hear often, don't we, these sentiments, these little slogans when it comes to what on earth people are going to do when it comes to the small boat crossing. I don't even know why we mess around calling these things small boats. These are not small boats at all. Have you seen the size of these things now? They seem to get bigger and bigger as the days and weeks go by. Anyway, we didn't smash any gangs. Look at this figure. The Tories put this out earlier on today, basically saying that Keir Starmer is not smashing any gangs whatsoever. Instead, huge records are being busted. We're at over 8,000 people now making that crossing so far. That is 46% higher, ladies and gents, than this time last year. Sia Yousaf, this is one of your key tenets when it comes to reform. What do you respond to this?
Well, the first comment I'd make is that a Tory claiming that anyone has lost control of Britain's borders is like a mosquito accusing somebody of spreading malaria. I mean, the small boats problem was one that was created by the Tories. But let's be clear about Starmer's record. Since he was made Prime Minister last summer, we've seen over 30,000 people now cross the English Channel illegally via small or not so small boats, as you point out. That is, we're now at 8,000, I believe, year to date. That's almost 50% higher year on year.
8,064.
And we're not even in the summer. And obviously, weather is one of the biggest drivers of these crossings. Look, people watching this at home care deeply about this issue because it represents the total catastrophic failure of political will and political capability in this country. We spend £54 billion a year on defence, a significant portion of that on a Royal Navy, and yet we are incapable of having a border that is non-porous. So this is an issue that has to be resolved. One of the reasons the issue has not been resolved is because we continue to be party to the ECHR. One of our flagship policies is that we will leave the ECHR, replace it with a British Bill of Rights, which places primacy on the rights of British citizens over the rights of foreign citizens. We will ensure that it is clear by legislation anyone who comes to this country illegally, Michelle, will not be allowed to stay and will be deported. Not only do we not have a deterrent in this country, we have a honeypot. We have the ultimate incentive, which is why these people, we should not forget these people are not coming from Syria, they're not coming from Gaza or the Ukraine, any other war zone, they're coming from France, which last I checked, millions of British people go to on holiday every summer. They're coming here. Why? Because we're a soft touch, and the Tories for 14 years and now Labour are failing to protect our borders.
Barry Gardner?
Well, look, there's some things in what Sia said that I would agree with. OK, he's right to talk about the Tory failure, but he's also right to say that there are pull factors here. And that's why I think it's right that what the government is doing is addressing some of those pull factors. I mean, we should recognise that actually, as a percentage of net migration, the small boats represent less than 3% of net migration. If you look at the returns, and that was one of the points that Sia made, we've actually returned more people than in the past 5 years.
Oh, Barry Gardner, come off it now. The majority of those, you're going to quote to me 24,000 people, and I'm going to tell you, as we have this conversation all the time, that most of those, or a large proportion of those, are voluntary deportations, many of which the government didn't even have a hand on, and we had to pay for them to go back.
No, we didn't. Actually, that's not the case of the 24,000. But not only that,
are you saying the majority? With respect, Barry, are you saying the majority of those are enforced removals?
I allowed you the opportunity to speak without interrupting you, so I'd appreciate the same courtesy. When you spoke about making sure that everybody who came here did not have the right to stay and would be returned, you know as well as I do that one of the problems governments of both shades have had is that the countries who we believe these people have come from refuse to take them back. So it's not a case of you could come in and simply say, there you are, we've got a new policy, we're going to return everybody, because you have to cooperate internationally with the governments from which they've come, or which we believe they've come from. And that's not as easy. And if they refuse, and many of them, as you know, they've ripped up their passports, so they've been taken by the criminal gangs. So it's not quite as simple as you're painting it. You talk about our Royal Navy and making sure that we put them to work here. So let me ask you, what are you actually proposing? Are you proposing that we would blast these small boats out of the water? Are you proposing that we turn them around and send them back to France? We're trying to work with France now, and in fact, I think it's next month, the French are supposed to be putting their patrol boats out to stop people leaving French waters. But we have to do that by cooperation with France. There's no point in their navy pushing them to us and our navy pushing to them. What happens as a result of that is people will die in the middle of the channel. So I'm keen that we get practical solutions here, Zia, but I haven't heard them from you.
OK, well, firstly, yes, people are dying. Hundreds of people, tragically, are dying making this journey, which is why it is a catastrophe that this problem is not being resolved. That's number one. Number two, I do have to, again, with respect, have to pick you up on the earlier point. As Michelle said, the majority of the deportees that Labour are highlighting and, quote, celebrating are voluntary and are not enforced removals. It's the lowest hanging fruit. And in terms of what we would do, well, here's a few things. Number one, as I said, we would leave the ECHR so that the industrial complex of lawyers who make money out of all of these things stop. We'd replace it with a British Bill of Rights. Number two, yes, we'd deploy His Majesty's Royal Navy on a humanitarian mission, to board and return these boats back to France from where they came. Thirdly, we would ensure that we would deport these people. And yes, are there countries that are going to push back on that? In which case, we ensure that it is the highest priority of our Foreign Office to ensure that we use a carrot and a stick. So we use, to the degree that we do have foreign aid, you know, we have countries where we're giving, in some cases, billions of foreign aid, and in many cases, hundreds of millions each year, and we're granting visas on a discretionary basis to countries that are refusing to take back even their convicted criminals that sit in our prisons, Barry. This is totally unacceptable. The reality is we have to have a government and a prime minister that say enough is enough. This is a national priority, and direct every instrument of state to solving this problem. And if we do that, I am telling you, we will solve the problem.
But then to Barry's point there, you're saying your second point there was you'll deploy the Navy onto a, quote, humanitarian issue, ferry them back to France. What if France say, well, actually, we're not going to accept those people? Barry's pushback to that is you're then going to end up with the French Navy pushing one way, the UK Navy pushing another.
So a couple of points. Number one, we've actually, prior to the general election, when we made this argument, people laughed and said, oh, well, we're going to have some sort of, standoff between navies. The reality is we saw what happened. We actually saw a boat return, several boats actually, return back to France shortly after the general election. And presumably because it worked, it never happened again. What happened? France took it back. Secondly, we would ensure, well, here's the first thing we do, Michelle, stop paying France £700 million to actually assist us with this issue. You said something very interesting there, Barry. You said France is, quote, supposed to. France and supposed to, together, in the context of these small boats, should not be taken seriously. We're paying them hundreds of millions of pounds, and they are, frankly, laughing at us. And the people watching this programme have had enough of it.
Well, I think if you look at the migration that's happening across Europe, right, coming in from Russia, coming in from all sorts of sources, the migration that we're getting in the UK, because we have the English Channel, is actually much less than many of those countries themselves are already taking in. So it's a problem that all countries are sharing, all Western countries are sharing. And therefore, I think it needs to be solved together. Now, you said something very interesting. That was we've got to get out of the ECHR, we've got to have the freedom to do this. Are you saying that you would, before creating a new convention, you would abandon the 1951 convention on refugees?
We would.
Is that your policy?
So we would do a couple of things, right? Number one, just to pick you up on the point about country. Number one, these people are coming from France, Barry. They're not coming from Gaza. They're not coming from Syria.
Sorry.
And secondly, the landmass of the United Kingdom, which really matters, is far, far smaller, clearly, than France or Germany or many other countries in Europe.
You're
so that's
dodging
a really
the
critical
question.
point.
You're dodging the question.
In answer to your question, for too long, these international treaties, that convention you're talking about, when was that?
1951.
1951.
And we
shortly
actually
after the closure of the Second World War, Barry.
Yeah.
We are living in a different world now. We are being taken advantage of. So what we would do is disapply certain aspects of those treaties so that we would be able to deport people who are coming here from one of the safest countries in the world to take advantage of British people, Barry. And we would make no apologies for doing so.
My point to you is this. I said, would you stop complying with it before you'd put something else in place? An international treaty has one very significant feature, and that is that it's international. That means you've got to negotiate with other parties. You can't simply unilaterally say...
We can disapply specific aspects of that treaty under British law, which will mean activist judges can no longer betray British people, Barry.
That treaty is very simple. It says that if somebody has a well-founded fear of persecution in their country of origin and they come to your country...
When you talk about well-founded, people watching this programme have seen the headlines about people coming to this country claiming that they'd be mistreated because of their alcoholism, despite being convicted rapists, being unable to be deported, Barry. I'm sorry,
you can change the subject all you like, but I will bring you back to the point.
I'm giving you a specific example.
No, you're not, because I've asked you about the specific parts of the treaty. The treaty is very simple. It says that if you have a well-founded fear of persecution in your own country, your country of origin, and you come to a safe country, you can there claim asylum, and you have to be accepted if it's ruled that you did have a well-founded fear.
One of the things
let me finish. You were talking about people who did not have a well-founded fear of persecution. You're talking about people who came as economic migrants or refused to go back for other reasons. I'm asking you, in the situation where people are genuine refugees, genuine asylum seekers, you can't simply walk out of the treaty without creating something else. And that's the question.
Listen,
how would you do it?
We're going to be very clear with the British people prior to the next general election, precisely what we're going to do with all of these international treaties that betray British people. But I will answer your question. So there are a number of principles in there, one of which says, for example, that treaty, the refugee treaty you're talking about, from 1951, it basically says you cannot in any way diminish somebody's asylum claim if they came to your country illegally. And I'm sorry, that is unacceptable. If somebody comes to our country illegally from France, they are not fleeing death, they are not fleeing serious threat to their life, and we cannot put them up in hotels at the cost of billions of pounds each year. So yes, let me finish, Barry, with respect, we will disapply such clauses under British law so that activist judges cannot continue to prioritise the interests of foreign citizens over the interests of citizens of the United Kingdom.
You see, the interesting thing is what you've done is you've taken the Tory legislation, right? The Tory legislation said, if you come by a small boat, you are illegal, and therefore we will not process your asylum claim. There's nothing on that in the 1951 Convention. Now, this is where you and I might have a point of agreement, and let's try and widen that. And that is that the 1951 Convention is out of date. It does need rework, okay? But it has to be done together with our international partners. If you simply walk away, you're not going to get everybody accepting what you
know what?
unilaterally
The only people who need to accept it are the British people.
Every
I have
country
no interest in what France thinks, given they've betrayed us. They've taken hundreds of millions of people, hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money, and betrayed us. The only people who have an interest in this are the British people, and those are the people we're going to stand up for.
We all have an interest in a safer, secure world where people are not trying to game the system.
One of my viewers has just got in touch saying, Michelle, on Saturday, Parliament was recalled and a bill was passed in a day, quite rightfully, he says, to save primary steelmaking. And he says, you know what, that's shown me that bills can be passed when there is a political will, often as demonstrated in a single day. We need this kind of political momentum and appetite and interest and focus, he says, on illegal immigration. Lots of you will agree with that. Look, after the break, Southport riots. Apparently, a report out today says that there were no signs of two-tier policing. Do you agree with that?
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, isn't it sending the wrong message to young workers who think that it would be all right to turn up drunk to work, or actually just ring up and say, I'm not coming in today because I'm drunk? That's no way to build a career, is it?
Well, I mean, this ensures that they don't turn up drunk to work because they can stay at home and have a line if they're feeling a bit worse for wear. But I think the point is it incentivizes people who, the reason the company did it was because they can't offer really high wages, so they have to offer any perks they can give. And this was one of them. And I think that if it makes life a bit easier, a bit more fun for young workers, then that's a good thing.
Dom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I've run a lot of companies. I've been in a situation where I've not had budget to hire people, and we didn't go to hangover leave. We went to offering things like gym membership, offering people things like therapy, offering positive things at work to be able to get them to enjoy where they work, not hangover leave. I think that's a bit desperate, well, very desperate. And to be honest, if you're running a company and someone wants to work at you because they want hangover leave, they're probably the wrong person to have in your organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Luca, isn't Gen Z supposed to be the generation that doesn't want to get drunk, that they're all for sort of healthy living and having mint tea instead of beer? Oh.
Well, some of us are, not all of us, don't worry. But there you go, all the more reason to do this. It can help with the nighttime economy. It can get people going back into pubs and bars and really boost that element of our economy. And as you say, many people won't want to take it anyway. It's an optional thing. It's not like you have to go out and get drunk every evening if your company has such a policy.
No, but what about having a responsible attitude to work?
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Kirtle, 7 o'clock. Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform, and Barry Gardner, Labour MP for Brent West, remain alongside me. I know, this small boat situation, we could almost do an entire programme on this. There's so much more to say, but I know, worry not though, ladies and gents, because we're not going to do this tonight, because there are so many other things that we need to discuss. Now, last summer's riots, we're all familiar with them. A report out today has said that actually, when it comes to these allegations of two-tier policing, that apparently is absolutely not true. The policing was apparently entirely appropriate. Many people, I have to say, disagree with the outcome of this report, but the report also goes on to say that many police forces were unprepared for the level of violence that broke out on the streets. Nigel Farage, he's one of those people that doesn't necessarily agree with the findings of this report. He says that in his mind, not only were there evidence of two-tier policing, but also two-tier justice. See, Youssef, what do you think?
I think it's abundantly clear that there is evidence of both of those things. And so, look, I'll point you to a couple of examples. Again, people watching this programme will be acutely aware of these. Do you remember the Hare Hills riots?
I do.
Last year. And do you remember that image that I think will end up sadly becoming an iconic image that perhaps sums up and epitomises modern-day Britain? Do you remember the upturned police car with probably, I think, 18, 20 men around it with their hands on it? In that scenario, the police policed that in the total opposite way to the manner in which they policed the Southport riots.
Is that the one where they ran away, basically?
They fled the scene. They fled the scene. And the police came out with a bunch of justifications for that. And listen, you might argue, OK, that was an appropriate operational response. It does not in any way, though, dissuade somebody of the view that that was the polar opposite manner in which the Southport riots were policed. I'll give you another example. The pro-Palestine marches. Now, the police are on the record as saying that, now, clearly, there is a right for people in this country to protest against things. That is abundantly clear and is sacrosanct. But the police are on the record as saying that they are told and instructed if somebody is, for example, parading a placard for a terrorist a prescribed organisation, not to move in and intervene immediately and make arrests, but rather to watch the footage afterwards and then to make arrests. And that any reasonable objective observer, Michelle, can see that that is not the manner in which different groups are policed. And then in terms of justice, again, this is not speculation. This is not somebody's opinion subjectively. Judges, in giving verdicts, have made it abundantly clear that if you are white, you will serve a longer sentence than if you are not. And look at the Sentencing Council. Look at what the Sentencing Council have said. And even the Labour government have been, were obviously very upset about. So the preponderance of evidence of two-tier policing and two-tier justice in this country is enormous. It doesn't do anybody any good, even if you give the devil their due and say it's well-intentioned, and one could debate that. It doesn't help. What's happening is there is a breakdown in the social contract in this country. The country is fraying. We are seeing an increase in the potential for social disorder because there's a tremendous sense of unfairness about how people are policed and how the justice system treats people, and it has to stop. And that's the point Nigel was making.
Barry Gardner?
When I knew we were going to discuss this tonight, I went to the Naval Office and I got a copy of the report, OK? And I've read that. I hadn't realised that police in Tamworth had petrol poured on them so that they could be set alight by these protesters, as Zia calls them. 199...
I bet he won't refer...
Let me be crystal clear. Nothing about what I said was in any way, trying to justify the actions of people.
I'm glad it wasn't.
Barbaric, and those people deserve to be... But anyone who throws petrol on police officers deserve to go to jail for a very long time.
But you blurred the distinction between protest and riot. And what the report concluded, with all the evidence that it took from everyone, was this was not protest. I'm quoting them directly. This was not protest. Those participating in disorder were not policed more strongly because of their supposed political views, but because they were throwing missiles, assaulting police officers, and committing arson. It was disgraceful to see the police officers who bore the brunt of this violence being undermined by baseless claims of two-tier policing. Now, this is a cross-party report, OK? It's not a Labour Party report. It's not a Conservative report. It's a cross-party report.
How many Reform MPs contribute to it?
I don't believe there's a Reform MP on that.
Exactly.
But then there are only 4 of you, and there's about 16 different committees, so it's very difficult for you to be represented on all of them. That's fine. But my point here is that this is a cross-party report. and it was very clear
Can I just
that
ask
the
you a quick
police
question on this,
sustained
please?
huge injuries, over 300 injuries to the police, and somebody tried to set alight one of those places where there was a woman with her child who would have been burned to death with a baying mob outside. Now, I don't think, you know, let's be clear. If we believe in law and order in this country, we should not be undermining the police by in any way minimising what went on there. It was a riot.
Who has minimised it? Because he didn't, and I didn't. Who has minimised it?
The people who said that it was two-tier policing, that the police were enforcing the law against these people more than they were against other people. They weren't.
Barry, if a mob overturns, flips a police car upside down and sets a bus on fire, do you think the police should flee the scene?
I think it depends on the situation.
It depends.
If they are, do
you think they police that differently?
Let me be very clear here. Okay, I know there have been situations where the police instruction has been stand back as long as nobody else is getting attacked or hurt, and it's simply a police car that is burning. Stand back, don't inflame the situation. I know that has taken place, but it's very different when people are actually under attack, when arson is being committed. So the two are not equatable. I agree with you. We have to enforce the law against the people who overturned the police car and whatever. But this was categorically not two-tier policing. And we're talking about all the people who gave evidence to this inquiry. That's what they came up with.
But Barry, you are conflating the argument that there is two-tier policing with some imaginary notion. And no one's making, certainly nobody here and nobody watching at home is making the argument that people engaging in those activities should not have been arrested, and go to jail for a very long time. No one's making that argument. The argument that people are making is that when it happens to be people from a different group, and you said the sentence, simply overturned a police car. That's an incredible serious thing. And similarly, you talked about arson. Exactly the same thing happened in Hare Hills. And by the way, there are many other examples like this. No one is arguing, again, no reasonable person, Michelle, myself, people watching this at home, making the argument that the events you are describing should not have been dealt with quickly and rapidly. But what they are arguing is that in many other situations where appalling things are happening because it's a different group, and again, I gave you the example of the protests as well, which again, this is on the record.
And there were many. Can I just say there were many protesters here who were not involved in that rioting. Sure. Protest, fine. Rioting, not fine. Now, my point to you would be this: are we agreed that the police policed these riots appropriately?
I would say if one looks at
not heavy-handed, but appropriately.
If one looks at the manner in which, so if we look at the Southport situation, right? You look at the fact that there was a woman who has been imprisoned and denied access to her children for years for putting a post on Facebook that was an appalling thing to post and was an incitement to serious violence. No argument about that. But has gone to jail, I think, for 31 months and denied access to her children. And then you have people who are convicted of accessing appalling, indecent images of children, crimes that most people would observe. People who are accessories to murder with machetes of teenagers. These people are given suspended sentences, don't go to jail, they're released from jail early, Barry, and that's what people look at. Nobody, again, I want to reiterate, nobody is sitting there and listening to the things you've just described and think those people should be left alone by the police.
Good.
But people are sick and tired of there being the sense that certain groups are treated, in particular minority groups, are given differential treatment by the police and differential treatment by the justice system. And even if that is well-meaning and well-intended, which in many cases probably it is, maybe not in all cases, what it does is it increases the sense of unfairness. And anyone who understands human psychology, what's a guaranteed way to get somebody bullied in a class? It is to get the teacher to give them obvious preferential treatment. And that is what is happening right now for minorities in this country as a result of the way the police do their job and the way the justice system works.
Jan, she's got in touch and said, Michelle, I am a retired police officer, and I can tell you that, in my opinion, it absolutely was two-tier policing. Lots of you do actually feel that there was two-tier policing evident. I just want to be clear, because I feel at this point needs to be re-landed. There is a difference between protest and rioting, and if you are somebody who thinks it's OK to chuck bottles, bricks and petrol or anything at any individual, irrespective of what they do, but especially police officers, you absolutely need to be in prison. You deserve that, whoever you are, whatever your colour is, whatever your religion is, and whatever your cause is that's taken you to the street in the first place. Well, I'm always interested in exploring those protests. That was what I was really interested in getting to the point of. Many of you will remember the footage. I remember broadcasting it on this channel, where you had two sides facing off each other. Do you remember this? You had the so-called anti-migration side, then you had the so-called anti-racist side. Many of you will recall that on the one side, the police officers was decked head to foot in riot gear. The other side, they were almost decked out in their summer policing uniforms. I mean, you can all make up your own minds. You've all got eyes and ears, and you've all got independent minds. Get in touch with me and tell me your thoughts, Michelle, on it all very quickly.
Does that not indicate that the police felt that there was greater threat coming from one side than the other? And that is enough in itself to tell you what they thought of the situation?
Well, no, actually, what I would say to that is people have got a right to go out and protest in this street. And if you want to, we hear all the time about the police, they want to have community relations and all the rest of it. If you think that a group of people are going to turn violent for whatever reason, then absolutely have your reinforcement and all the rest of it in the background. Why would you start? Why would your starting point be, when you've got collection, Group A and Group B, why would your very starting point, where everybody is peaceful, everyone is protesting, why would your starting point be?
Because of the intelligence that you have about what is planned. And
well, you say intelligence. There was an awful lot of strange intelligence floating around, because I remember that there was apparently all of these racist riots apparently being planned, and actually none of them, or very few of them, actually materialised. And you had one situation where one guy, he was pretending to be a so-called far-right extremist in these groups, making out that he was some kind of racist and all the rest of it to try and get other people on the street. Even he didn't manage to galvanise people into the street, and he now is behind bars. So I think there was a very strange, peculiar set of things going on during that period of time. Like I say, you guys will be the final judge of it. Look, again, I could carry this one on, but for time reasons, I need to move on, because we need to also discuss steel, ladies and gents, British steel. We, essentially the government, now in control of it for the time being. What then should happen next?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're hoping to get away for the rest of the Easter holidays, I'm afraid it's rather unsettled across the central Mediterranean. Heavy showers, thunderstorms and also some strong winds. Largely dry across Madeira and the rest of the Canary Islands, though, particularly after all the heavy rain recently. But as we shift our way eastwards, heavy showers affecting much of the central Mediterranean. These could have hail and also some thunder and some strong winds associated with them too. Largely dry across Greece, and it's turning largely dry for all as we head into Saturday, with temperatures widely in the mid to high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Falkirk on the M876. One lane's closed southbound at junction 1, just east of Denny, where a lorry's broken down off the Check Bar roundabout. And near the Cheshire-Merseyside border, heading north up the M6, the two inside lanes are closed. Approaching junction 23 at Haydog, they're recovering a lorry that caught fire. In Lincolnshire, northeast of Sleaford, the A153 at Alnwick remains shut for accident investigation work. And the M4 is down to one lane westbound, 19 to 20, northwest of Bristol, after a lorry broke down off the M5. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Dewbs and Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. I've got Barry Gardner, the MP, and Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK, alongside me now. Still, Saturday, for the first time in a very long time, you saw Parliament, both houses actually, being recalled to debate what on earth to do with the situation in British Steel. Look, long story short, the government decided that they were going to take essentially temporary ownership to some degree of British Steel. The big question, therefore, is what should happen next? Barry Gardner.
Yeah. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure that the feedstock that's at Immingham gets into the into that plant, and we can keep those burners going. Because if it all cools down, it closes down. It's very difficult to get it restarted.
Yeah.
So I think the government was not only right to take over control of British Steel, but it was right to previously have initiated those contracts so that we could get that supply chain in place to make that happen without letting on to Xingyi. So I think that was it was a smart move in that sense.
Why didn't you do this with Port Talbot? Because a lot of Welsh viewers will be asking that question.
Yeah, look, it is a different situation in Port Talbot, and we're looking at the arc furnace it wasn't us anyway that concluded that deal. It was a deal that was concluded by the Tories. So it's in a sense, that has happened already, and it was about using the arc method to keep the steel going there. But that's the primary steel that we need has to be coming from here, and that's why it's important, because this was the last place in which we'd be able to make primary steel. So really important that we do that. We've got the management in play now. I don't know whether the government will then seek to put this back out as a going concern, see if somebody else can take it over. They'd offered Xingyi £500 million in order to keep that plant going. They refused to do that and were clearly in a position where they were going to run it down. So it was the right action at the right time. They tried to negotiate, which was fair, but when they couldn't, It was a matter of national security to keep that supply of primary steel available.
If we care about national security, what on earth were we letting the Chinese essentially buy up British steel for in the first place?
Well, again, you'd have to ask the Conservatives that rather than me. But that's what they did. They also were the people who negotiated the ARC contract for Port Talbot. We now have to look forward and see what we're going to do and potentially what other industries are vital to our national security and look at what we need to do to secure those.
Chinese investors, whether state or private, will have a hand in many of those different industries or utilities or whatever it is. It's mind-blowing. When you've got nothing better to do, ladies and gents, look it up. Zia Youssef.
Well, for 14 years, Barry's right, the Tories, because of this net zero religion that afflicted apparently the whole of Westminster, this country sacrificed all but all of its capabilities in terms of raw material and natural mineral extraction, sacrificed almost its entire manufacturing industry, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of jobs at the altar of that religion. The problem is, yes, it was the right move to nationalise British steel, although it's still not done in the way that it needs to be. And clearly it was in response to the demands made by Nigel and Richard. Richard's been talking about this for years. The reality is the conditions that caused this situation remain in place. Britain has the most expensive energy costs in the world. Anyone trying to produce steel in this country, because of the regulations and because of the punitive costs placed by the state entirely voluntarily on such businesses, on such industries, means we're not going to be competitive. In the 1970s, the United Kingdom would produce around 25 million tonnes of steel. We're now in the range of around 5 million. It's completely collapsed. That's less than Belgium, by the way. The Chinese, speaking of the Chinese, they produce 1 billion. Why? Because a sovereign nation incapable of producing its own steel and other such metals is essentially at the mercy of becoming a vassal state.
What do you think to this at home? There's so many angles that we need to explore. This whole question then about what should we do next. Your thoughts on that? The Chinese, what do you think to them actually being allowed to earn British steel? It's mind-boggling if you ask me. And this net zero thing, the conversation continues in 2.
Hello, very good evening to you. Here's your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Now watch out for some heavy rain as we go through tomorrow, particularly across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, but even elsewhere there will be some wet weather around. Now the main driver for the very wet weather tomorrow will be an area of low pressure that's coming in from the south, but even before that we do have a front across us. There's fairly persistent rain affecting some parts of eastern Scotland, northern England, Wales and southwest England overnight. We also have a plume of showers piling into parts of the southeast, and some of these could be heavy, possibly even thundery. But away from the showery rain, some clear, drier weather, and across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, those clear skies could allow for a touch of frost first thing tomorrow morning. But for most, it is going to be a relatively mild night because of the cloudy, blustery, wet weather. And that's the story across eastern parts of Scotland first thing tomorrow morning. But further west with some clearer skies, yes, there could be a touch of frost. A bit of a chillier start here. And across Northern Ireland, generally starting the day mostly fine. But a different story across much of England and Wales. Limited, if any, bright or sunny spells for most. And there will be a fair bit of rain around. The heaviest, most persistent rain will generally be across parts of western Wales and into southwest England, and this rain is going to pep up a bit as we go through the afternoon. We're expecting totals of around 50 to 75 millimetres in some places as we go through tomorrow and into Wednesday. That's enough to cause some issues in some parts. Away from the more persistent rain in the west, there will be a scattering of showers, also some bright sunny spells, and we should see highs in the mid to high teens Celsius. By Wednesday, the majority of the rain will have pushed its way northward, so northern parts having a cloudy, wet, blustery day, even some sleet and snow over the high ground of Scotland. Further south, it's drier with just a few showers here and there, but there will be a bit more showery rain coming in from the west and southwest as we go towards the end of the week. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Curtles, 7 o'clock tonight. The USF Chairman of Reform UK and Barry Gardner, the Labour MP for Brent West, alongside her. We're going to have to do like a Dewbs special or something one of these days with these guys, because there's so much we need to talk about tonight. But look, let's just carry on this conversation about British Steel. One of my viewers, Ali, just got in touch and said, Michelle, the urgency that we saw on Saturday regarding British Steel was nothing but politics. A chance to try and puff their chests out, he says, against China. Is that fair, Barry?
No, I don't think it was fair at all, actually. But it was important that we did it, and it was important we did it when we had exhausted the possibility of negotiation and knew that the company were going to run it down. Look, I wanted to take up what Gia had said about net zero, because it's an argument that Reform often makes about the costs. And they're right to this extent. We do have very high electricity costs in this country, particularly for the heavy industrial uses. So our energy expenses are impacting on that. They're more high than they are in Germany and they are in France. But it's not actually because of net zero. If you look at what are called the policy costs of net zero, in the UK, that's about £5 per megawatt. In Germany and France, actually the other way around, I think France and Germany, I think it's about £8 and £11 respectively. What they do, though, is they put a levy on their domestic payers that actually subsidises their heavy industries. So that actually the householder is paying more for it than the business is. The reason we have such high electricity prices, though, is partly because we're an island nation. On the continent, they're constantly trading energy on interconnection between themselves, but also they have higher elements of nuclear and of hydro than we do. We are dependent on gas as the marginal price to balance our electricity grid. And that is what costs so much, because if you look at what in fact, just last month, one of the gas suppliers to our energy users was charging 100 times the market price. They're making huge profits. They've made over 500 billion profits in the past 4 years. And in the last year, if you look at British Gas, they made $750 million just out of this. It's fossil fuel dependency that is actually costing it so much, not the net zero costs.
Yeah.
Barry, the United Kingdom has the most expensive energy costs in the world. The US pays 40%
and
less than us.
I've just explained why.
Less than us. The Chinese pay 70%
Yeah, but
less
he's
than
saying
us.
it's not because of net zero. That's his
Number
point.
one, the subsidies that are placed on the British bill payer, the consumer alone, are £300 per year per household over the last decade. That's adjusted for inflation. That's just the subsidies that the British bill payers are being asked to pay. Then you look at businesses and you talk to any business trying to extract raw materials out of the ground, trying to manufacture something, trying to refine something. The endless penalties that are placed on them, again, at the altar of essentially penalising them for carbon emissions. These are endless. Sorry. And by the way, the Chinese, not only, the Chinese produce over a billion tonnes of steel, 4.5 billion tonnes of coal. That goes up every single year. People keep saying it's coming down. Xi Jinping is laughing because the Chinese can barely produce enough coal to power the plants from which Ed Miliband is buying all of the wind turbines and solar panels from. It's a farce, and the British people are being forced to subsidise the growth of emerging market economies, and we're not making the world any cleaner as a result. All we're doing is impoverishing British people and suffocating the British economy.
As I've explained, that's not because of net zero. It's also partly because we have an ageing network infrastructure that is struggling to get electricity from where it's produced to where it's needed.
All of our coal plants were shut down. All of our coal plants were shut down, which is where the grid is connected
Your
to.
policy of undergrounding all those cables would actually put £200 a year on everybody's bills, and yet you're still insisting on doing that.
Quick, you've got like 20 seconds here. If you want to respond?
One of the issues we have with the grid is that all of our coal plants have been shut down, and there was so much confidence that we never need them. Not only were they shut down, they were blown up. One of the things we would do, by the way, it's true. One of the things we would do is proliferate small modular nuclear reactors, which are in fact zero emissions.
We're doing it.
And would give us the
Well,
abundant
there you
and
go.
cheap
I
energy
told
the country
you we
needs.
have so much that we could have a conversation about, but the conversation will have to continue another night. Thanks for your company, everyone. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. Here's your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Now watch out for some heavy rain as we go through tomorrow, particularly across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, but even elsewhere there will be some wet weather around. Now the main driver for the very wet weather tomorrow will be an area of low pressure that's coming in from the south, but even before that we do have a front across us. There's fairly persistent rain affecting some parts of eastern Scotland, northern England, Wales and southwest England overnight. We also have a plume of showers piling into parts of the southeast, and some of these could be heavy, possibly even thundery. But away from the showery rain, some clear, drier weather, and across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, those clear skies could allow for a touch of frost first thing tomorrow morning. But for most, it is going to be a relatively mild night because of the cloudy, blustery, wet weather. And that's the story across eastern parts of Scotland first thing tomorrow morning. But further west with some clearer skies, yes, there could be a touch of frost. A bit of a chillier start here. And across Northern Ireland, generally starting the day mostly fine, but a different story across much of England and Wales. Limited, if any, bright or sunny spells for most, and there will be a fair bit of rain around. The heaviest, most persistent rain will generally be across parts of western Wales and into southwest England, and this rain is going to pep up a bit as we go through the afternoon. We're expecting totals of around 50 to 75 millimetres in some places as we go through tomorrow and into Wednesday. That's enough to cause some issues in some parts. Away from the more persistent rain in the west, there will be a scattering of showers, also some bright sunny spells, and we should see highs in the mid to high teens Celsius. By Wednesday, the majority of the rain will have pushed its way northward, so northern parts having a cloudy, wet, blustery day, even some sleet and snow over the high ground of Scotland. Further south, it's drier with just a few showers here and there, but there will be a bit more showery rain coming in from the west and southwest as we go towards the end of the week. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays continue near the Cheshire-Merseyside border on the M6 north.